This is a dramatized alternate history reconstruction inspired by the real January 2020 Iranian missile strike on U.S. positions at Asad and Erbil. Asad Air Base, Anbar Province, Western Iraq. 3:17 p.m. Clear skies, harsh desert sun, perfect visibility across the flat hard pan out to the blast walls. 312 American personnel are on the ramp line and in the hardened shelters, drawn from a rotational security element, drone crews, engineers, and an airfield operations detachment. 50 Iranian ballistic missiles are already in the air. And in the next 22 minutes, Iran's leadership believes it will force America to blink on camera in broad daylight with every plume visible for miles. This is that story. 3:19 p.m. The first warning does not come from Iraq. It comes from above the atmosphere. Infrared satellites that see the launches as bright wounds on the horizon, the same early warning architecture credited with saving lives in the real 2020 strike. On the base loudspeakers, the giant voice system rolls across the ramp in a metal shout. Incoming. Take cover. Within 74 seconds, the flight line empties, doors slam, helmets strap, blast shutters drop. This is what happens when you try to surprise the United States in open daylight. 3:22 p.m. Iran's strike package is built around what it already proved it could do in 2020 short-range ballistic missiles like the Qaem-1 and Fateh 313, thrown from multiple launch areas, designed to arrive in waves and break rhythm. The Fateh 313's published range sits at 500 kilometers, but in this reconstruction, its employment is about something else: timing, saturation, and psychological pressure. The first impacts are visible from Perimeter Road, white dust geysers and black smoke columns punching up like signal flags. And Iran makes its first catastrophic mistake. It fires for footage, not for effect. 3:25 p.m. 3 missiles walk across the aircraft maintenance zone, ripping through tension membrane structures and fuel bladders, an effect consistent with where real impacts were documented at Al-Assad's ramps in 2020. A fourth missile craters a taxiway, throwing 9.4-meter spalls of concrete into the air. A fifth folds a communications hut and severs fiber runs. In the real strike, damaged infrastructure severed control links and forced a frantic recovery effort for airborne drones. Here, in the daylight, the smoke is the same, but the response is faster. Because the U.S. does not waste a warning this time. What happened in the next 22 minutes becomes a case study in compressed retaliation. 3:28 p.m. At coordinates 33.800 degrees north, 42.433 degrees east, the publicly known location of Al-Asad, medics begin triage before the last wave has even landed. 7 Americans are wounded, concussive overpressure, shrapnel, crushed hands from blast doors. 0 killed. That asymmetry matters, because in the real 2020 event, the U.S. ultimately reported more than 100 traumatic brain injuries, even with no fatalities. But Iran's planners are not chasing a body count. They are chasing a headline. America was hit. America did nothing. That is their second catastrophic mistake. 3:31 p.m. Erbil's airfield, near 36.2375 degrees north, 43.963056 degrees east, takes its own impacts, echoing the real-world targeting of Erbil alongside Al-Asad. A missile fails to detonate on the far side of the runway. Another lands wide, throwing dust over Perimeter Highway. In the real strike, the exact count and performance of the missiles was disputed, but multiple official estimates confirm impacts at both locations. Here, Iran's third catastrophic mistake is the most basic. It assumes the strike ends the story. Instead, it starts the clock. This is Operation Sundown Lance. 3:34 p.m. At CENTCOM's operations floor, the decision is not debated in public. It is executed in silence. In the real 2020 event, U.S. leaders monitored and assessed damage and ultimately did not conduct immediate overt kinetic retaliation. In this alternate timeline, the posture is different. Pre-authorized response packages, already loaded, already airborne, already keyed to a strike list built around military infrastructure only. Iran believes it can hide behind distance. They are wrong. 3:36 p.m. The first American assets are not bombs. They are sensors. An ISR stack tightens. High-altitude orbits, wide-area radar, and drone eyes retasked to watch for secondary attacks. Because in 2020, U.S. commanders fear a follow-on ground assault after the missile barrage. The desert sun becomes a weapon. Every vehicle movement throws a shadow. Every launch crew is visible, if not to the naked eye, then to a system designed to see heat, track motion, and fix coordinates. And Iran makes its fourth catastrophic mistake. It disperses too late. If you're still here, lock in, because the response does not come in hours. It comes in minutes. 3:39 p.m. A U.S. Navy destroyer in the North Arabian Sea rolls its Mk-41 cells to readiness. Not for show, for work. The weapon is the BGM-109 Tomahawk, a subsonic cruise missile with a published Block 4 range of 1,600 kilometers and a 454 kg class unitary warhead. 34 Tomahawks are assigned, each with pre-planned route, terrain following legs, and terminal aim points pinned to hardened facilities. Simultaneously, 2 bomber crews are already aligned for standoff release. This is what happens when you fire first and stay exposed in daylight. 3:41 p.m. The Air Force portion of the package is built around the AGM-158 family. Low observable standoff weapons designed to walk past air defenses and punch into fixed infrastructure. The JASSM-ER's published range sits around 1,000 kilometers, carrying a 450 kg class penetrator warhead. One can carry up to 24 of them. In this reconstruction, a mixed salvo of 19 JASSM-ERs is allocated to high-value nodes, runways, POL farms, command bunkers, and missile support facilities. Not cities, not civilians, bases. Then everything changes. 3:43 p.m. Iran's air defense picture is loud. Radars sweeping, batteries repositioning. Crews believing the Americans will telegraph a response with fighters first. But the first thing to arrive is silence. Low observable profiles. Terrain massed approaches. And Iran makes its fifth catastrophic mistake. It prepares to fight aircraft. The first wave is missiles. This is that story where the retaliation is already moving while the smoke is still rising over Al-Assad. 3:45 p.m. The catastrophic mistakes become clear one by one. First, Iran assumes the U.S. will need hours to build a strike plan. Reality, pre-planned standoff packages are already validated and loaded. Second, Iran assumes daylight exposure creates political restraint. Reality, daylight creates targeting clarity. Shadows, heat blooms, vehicle tracks. Third, Iran assumes their defenses will shape the fight. Reality, standoff missiles route around coverage and arrive on azimuths crews never see. Fourth, Iran assumes dispersal after launch breaks attribution. Reality, launch signatures and movement patterns are already captured and time-stamped. Fifth, Iran assumes limited U.S. casualties forces de-escalation. Reality, limited casualties removes hesitation. Response becomes purely doctrinal. Never bet your strategy on America doing nothing. 3:47 p.m. The first Tomahawks lift out of their cells and flatten into sea-skimming flight. Subsonic. Steady. They do not race. They do not need to. The desert sky over Iraq stays brutally clear. The smoke columns from Al-Assad still visible, drifting east in a thin wind. And that wind matters, because it keeps the horizon clean. No haze. No concealment. What happened in the next 14 minutes becomes the fastest from impact to counterstrike sequence in this theater's modern record. 3:50 p.m. The second wave is airborne standoff. JASSM-ERs peel off pylons in internal bays and drop into their own flight paths, guided by INS/GPS and terminal seekers designed for precision. Their warheads are built for structure, not spectacle. Iran's command posts do not hear them. They only hear the first detonation. This is Mayung Island energy, except now it's the Iranian interior and the timeline is collapsing. 3:53 p.m. The first Iranian base goes dark. A hardened communications site supporting missile operations loses its power spine. Transformers flash, arc, and die. A runway intersection erupts, the concrete folding upward like paper. A pole farm lights off in a chain series of blasts. Thick smoke climbing straight up in the clear afternoon. The plume is visible for miles. That visibility is not an accident. It is the message. If you want the rest of this timeline, stay with me, because the next 9 minutes erase 14 military sites from operational status. 3:56 p.m. Second base, a fighter dispersal area. Blast doors warp. Shelters collapse inward. Fuel trucks burn. Third base, a missile support depot. The roof lifts, then drops. Fourth base, an air defense battalion staging lot. The radar vans are still rolling when the first impact arrive. The road becomes a crater field. Iran planned to show the U.S. bleeding. Instead, it shows itself exposed. This is what happens when you trade surprise for theatrics. 3:59 p.m. Fifth and sixth bases are hit nearly simultaneously. Two separate regions, two separate strike corridors, one synchronized effect. A command bunker entrance is sealed by rubble. A munitions revetment detonates in sympathetic sequence. One, then another, each blast kicking higher into the clean air. The sun is still up, and now the entire country understands something it cannot unlearn. There's no hiding from standoff precision once the response is authorized. 3:17 p.m. to 3:59 p.m. 42 minutes of daylight, and the balance of initiative changes hands. If you've ever wondered what overwhelming looks like in modern doctrine, keep listening, because the last 8 targets are where the deterrence gets permanent. 4:02 p.m. Seventh base, runway denial. 2 strikes walk the center line, space to prevent rapid repair. Eighth base, aircraft maintenance. Penetrators go through the roof and detonate inside, destroying tooling, spares, and bays. Ninth base, hardened storage. A single impact turns the entrance into a sealed tomb. The weapons are not magic. They are math, range, guidance, timing. And the math is on America's side. 4:05 p.m. 10th base, a coastal operations hub, loses its radar picture. 11th base, a command post is shattered, its antenna farm sheared off like snap bone. 12th base, a logistics node burns, forklifts, pallets, fuel lines, everything that turns peacetime inventory into wartime tempo. In the real 2020 strike, Iran demonstrated it could hit specific structures with precision at Al-Assad. In this alternate timeline, the U.S. answers with the same language, precision, but at a different scale. Never threaten U.S. forces and expect a slow reply. 4:08 p.m. 13 bases struck, air defense coordination. Its central shelter collapsing in a cloud that blooms tan, then gray, then black. The afternoon sun, silhouettes of smoke like a landmark. And now the final target, the 14th base. For 11 p.m., the last standoff weapons arrive from a different azimuth, deliberately chosen to stress remaining coverage. A single impact goes deep. A second follows into the same scar. Then the facility stops transmitting. No chatter. No radar sweep. No vehicles moving on the perimeter road. Silence. This is that story where the retaliation is not a press release. It is an operational shutdown. 4:14 p.m. Back at Al-Assad, the immediate aftermath is controlled chaos. Fire crews move with foam lines and hand signals. Medics log the wounded and keep them breathing. Engineers mark craters and measure damage. In the real-world 2020 event, Al-Assad suffered significant structural hits with no fatalities, and later reporting confirmed large numbers of TBIs. Here, The base still stands on the same sun, but now Iran's ability to repeat the attack is gone. This is what happens when you fire 50 missiles and forget the other side owns the next chapter. 4:18 p.m. The casualty count locks. American, 0 killed, 7 wounded, 19 treated for concussive symptoms, all evacuated within the hour. Adversary, 487 killed across 14 military sites, 1,204 wounded, 38 aircraft destroyed on the ground, 62 missile support vehicles eliminated, 11 radar units reduced to scrap. Stark, asymmetric, final. If you want more timelines like this, tight, precise, no wasted words, subscribe and stay with the channel. 4:21 p.m. The Ordnance summary is compiled, cold and unromantic. 34 Tomahawk Block 4 class land attack. Missiles committed to fixed infrastructure. 19 AGM. 158 JASSM-ER. Committed to hardened nodes. 12 anti-radiation weapons committed to suppress surviving emitters. 27 small diameter precision weapons committed to runway cuts and vehicle parks. Total, 92 precision-guided munitions in the first wave of retaliation, disproportionate by design, because deterrence is not gentle. 4:25 p.m. Iran's strategic failure is not that it fired missiles. It is that it fired them in a way that revealed its doctrine, its launch rhythm, and its confidence under perfect visibility. In the real 2020 strike, Iran's missiles hit al-Assad with enough precision to damage specific structures, and the U.S. later emphasized early warning and evacuation as life-saving factors. In this reconstruction, those same ingredients, warning, movement, discipline, become the foundation for immediate counterforce. This is what happens when you try to make America a headline. 4:29 p.m. The final loop closes. Iran wanted images of American fear. It gets images of its own bases burning in the afternoon sun. Al-Assad's smoke drifts west. Iran's smoke columns rise straight up, dark against a clear sky. And the psychological effect lands harder than the warheads. Everyone in the region sees how fast a response can be. Never threaten U.S. forces. Never assume restraint is weakness. Never forget the clock starts ticking the moment you launch. If you made it this far, hit subscribe, because the next story gets even tighter, even faster, even more unforgiving. 3:17 p.m. 50 missiles launched toward U.S. positions under clear skies. 3:22 p.m. First impact at al-Assad. Ramps and support zones hit, smoke visible for miles. 3:31 p.m. Erbil struck as a secondary target, mirroring the real-world dual base pattern. 3:39 p.m. Tomahawk strike cells go live, 1,600 km class reach, for 154 kg class warhead, deep precision. 3:50 p.m. JASSM-ERS release, 1,000 km class standoff, for 150 kilograms penetrators, synchronized arrival. 3:53 p.m. to 4:11 p.m. 14 Iranian military sites lose operational status in a single daylight sequence. American casualties, 0 killed, 7 wounded. Adversary losses, 487 killed, 1,204 wounded. 14 bases neutralized, 92 precision weapons expended. The lesson is permanent. When you choose open visibility, you also choose exposure. So subscribe for the next debrief, follow for the next timeline, and stay here for the next operation. Total American victory.